Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yori Folani. Okay, let's take a look at President Tinubu's presentation yesterday. Now the nation has a budget, and it's, 27.5 trillion naira. It's been submitted to the National Assembly. Of course, they're going to go into processes, but we'll talk about it. Now, just to sort of, first of all, let me introduce our guest, Senator Babajide Omoworare, former SSA to President Buhari on National Assembly matters. He joins us this morning. A fine morning to you, sir. Thank you for making it.
Good morning.
All right, then. So let's just look at this news package as a background, and then we'll come on, and then we'll talk about it. Check this out.
Okay.
This is President Bola Tinubu's maiden budget presentation to the National Assembly. The President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, sets the ball rolling with his welcome remarks. He applauds the giant strides of Mr. President in the past months and promises a robust executive-legislature relationship without compromising the doctrine of separation of powers.
We will certainly conduct a very thorough and meticulous review of the estimates we are about to present to us. We would also like to express our gratitude to Mr. President for his tireless efforts in driving economic growth, promoting social welfare, and enhancing the security of our dear nation.
President Bola Tinubu took the legislators through government's projections in the coming year. Non-debt expenditure is 9.92 trillion naira, debt servicing at 8.25 trillion naira, capital expenditure of 8.7 trillion naira, and a revenue projection of 9.1 trillion naira.
Despite the global headwind, the Nigerian economy has proven resilient, maintaining moderate but positive growth over the past 12 months. Inflation has trended upward, yes, due to the weak global conditions. To contain these rising domestic prices, we will ensure effective coordination of physical and monetary policy measures.
For the Speaker, House of Representatives, due diligence is key as lawmakers review the fiscal document.
The budget laid before us today should not be seen as a mere financial document, but a reflection of our collective vision to address the most critical needs of our long-suffering citizens.
As Mr. President and his entourage take their leave, the two chambers announced their resolve to hit the ground running. They also agreed to sit on weekends in response to Mr. President's appeal.
In the days ahead, the National Assembly will definitely be very busy as both chambers play host to different ministries, departments and agencies of the government in a bid to see them defend their budget estimates. Expectations, as they have also assured Mr. President, is that they will meet up the timeline of January to December budget cycle once again. Joke Adisa, TVC News, Abuja.
Okay, then. Apologies for contents of that report where the sound was awful, but luckily you heard it live, and essentially Senator Omoworare, Senator Babajide Omoworare, is standing by. He's our guest this morning, former SSA to President Buhari on National Assembly matters. So, Senator, your general comments and on overview of it, 27.5 trillion budget.
Well, thank you for having me, and good morning to the viewers. My overview was that the President gave a very clear, unambiguous, very categorical, very lucid budget speech. And the budget speech, was so clear that you could design, and very well structured. The first thing he did was to thank the members and the senators and the honorable members of House of Representatives for their cooperation so far. And he now went on to, first of all, talk about removal of subsidy that has been done, and the fact that he's had to bring supplementary budgets with respect to infrastructure and with respect to security. He went on to provide what seemed like a problem statement, looking at the global economic meltdown, the strife, the war going on all over the world, and the post-COVID effect on the economy. From my perspective, situating the Nigerian economic position in the global perspective, that it's not something that is just unique to Nigeria, it's global. After doing that, he went on to review the 2023 budget, and he now stated in the 2024 budget what he proposed to do. He spoke about security, national security and defense. He spoke about human capital being the most vital factor when it comes to national development.
Do you think, sorry to interject, Senator, do you, I imagine those are very, very important, categories, security, job creation, and poverty reduction, or even eradication. Those three, security, job creation, and poverty eradication. Because would you like to talk about understanding why, indeed, those ones should be the top liners in the budget?
Well, sincerely, you cannot build a nation if you run a nation of poor people. It will not work. It has never worked anywhere in the world. What the budget seeks to do all over the world is to ensure that whilst most countries are capitalistic in nature, there is free enterprise, the state has a duty to, although it may be classified as part of Chapter 2 of the Constitution, fundamental, objective, and directive state principles that are supposedly non-justiciable, but the state has an obligation to ensure that those who cannot lift their arms, the state assists them in lifting their arms. Any smart state, any smart government must ensure that if it's not going to be poverty eradication completely, it will be poverty reduction. It will provide for development of human capital, which is also, funny enough, that's what I think is our ace in Nigeria. That is what I think we have more than natural resources, human capital. And any smart government must develop human capital. So I think the government of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu is on point by picking that as a fundamental issue. He said it will be reviewed. A lot of things will be reviewed in that respect. A lot of things will be reviewed. Probably in the past, because there has to be transparency, there has to be accountability. We have to know the number of people that are actually within the bracket and how to reach the number of people within that bracket and extend the largesse that the government wants to give to them, to enable them to find their footing. It's never what will be perpetual. It's not perpetual. It's not what, and nobody wants to be a poor person. But the government's responsibility includes ensuring that you find your feet and you are elevated above that poverty line. We have to reduce the poverty level in Nigeria, and I'm happy that was one of the issues identified by the president amongst several other issues.
Okay. Did you notice the president said everything has been predicated on an oil price of 77.96, and he said a conservative estimate of 77.96 per barrel, dollars per barrel. But that is, he said it was conservative, but I think that is even slightly higher than what we have at the moment.
Well, the number one thing I have to first of all clarify is that budget itself is not actual. Budget is based on speculation, is based on calculated, speculative parameters.
Okay.
Which is why you always have MTEF. You know, the president thanked the members of the National Assembly for passing the MTEF on time, which is the medium-term expenditure framework and the fiscal strategy paper under the Fiscal Responsibility Act. That is always that is only what comes before the budget. It is the foundation upon which the budget is built. That is what the National Assembly must first of all approve, I think, is Section 11 of the Fiscal Responsibility Act that says this. It's an all-encompassing act that talks about revenue, expenditure, borrowings, and the rest of it. And it caters for states and local government. It even caters for the government-owned enterprises. How do we relate with them? Because the budget of the government-owned enterprises is not going to be part of the budget presented by the president. So those parameters are first of all settled, and the parameters are very simple. What is going to be the interest rates? It's with a view to ensuring there is macroeconomic stability. What is the interest rate? What is the foreign exchange rate? How many barrels per day of oil are we likely to unearth? Then
Yes.
at what?
The president projected 1.78 million. The president projected
1.78. Then at what? Now, we've fallen short for some time of meeting our targets because of too many things, too many issues. Pilfering of the oil,
Yes.
You have illegal refineries all over the place. But all things being equal, these are parameters that must be defined. That is what determines whether the budget will be 27 trillion or will be 30 trillion or will be 20 trillion. You look at X is the number of fuel that we will get. We will sell it at Y price, and the exchange rate will be maybe Z, and so on and so forth. So those parameters must be settled, which was why the president sent to the National Assembly for approval the MTEF, Medium-Term Expenditure Framework, which has been approved. It is, like I said, the foundation upon which the budget is built. If anything changes, the president may send another letter to say, look, things have changed in diaspora and there is need to change this. And just like the president can do supplementation of the budget. So I think the president has started well by projecting those figures. The budget itself is 27 billion plus, and it has recurrent of 9 billion, which is still high, then 8.7 billion, I think, which is the capital, and I think 8.1, which is the debt repayment. Debt repayment used to be higher, but don't forget again that we've removed subsidy, so some more money are coming in, and with that, we should be able. I don't have any problem with, as long as the budget of course came with deficit of maybe about 9 trillion too, about 9 trillion deficit, but I don't have any problem with having deficit budget as long as we can fund it, as long as the funding, going back to the Fiscal Responsibility Act, has been approved by the National Assembly based on cost-benefit analysis. And if I can recollect vividly, I think it's Section 44 of that act that says so. You don't even borrow for recurrent, you borrow for capital. And you don't even borrow for capital at all. You borrow for long-term capital, long-term infrastructure development, things that you cannot do and achieve in a year, 2, 3 years. That's what you borrow for. And that's what I think, and I hope this government of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu will borrowing to fund the deficit will do.
Indeed. Well, it was serious business that the president had to do there yesterday, but he was speaking about how he was feeling entirely at home in the place yesterday, and the Senate president was, and the House was, the combined House was quite welcoming. The other thing is that the Senate president actually had, undertaken that, look, we're going to be hitting the road, hitting the ground running. We will do the needful as soon as possible in a timely manner. He actually slipped in there for the president to consider barring anybody from traveling anywhere in the immediate term, so that when they invite people to come explain things, they would be available. So all of that seems to indicate that the National Assembly, at least, going by its leadership, has said that they will be giving it all that it has. He did point out that without compromising the principle of separation of powers.
Two things that will happen subsequently, two things that will happen going forward, two things that are likely to happen. Number one is the fact that I'm saying it for the third time, I think, that the president thanked the National Assembly for its cooperation. The cooperation, the collaboration, and the coordination of the parliament is very germane to running good government. And we must always separate it from separation of power. Yes, powers are separated. Yes, I won't expect the president to do things that will touch on the independence of the legislature. Just like I won't expect the legislature to do things that will touch on the independence of the executive or the judicature. But first and foremost, there must be cooperation. We can't move forward. I was in the parliament when we had tranquil session, and I know what we achieved. I was also the SSA to the president when we also had tranquil session. And I was also in the parliament when we did not have it and we could not do anything. We are not moving forward. Governance is not about competition. The president is not competing with National Assembly. National Assembly is not competing with the president. We voted for the president and we voted for the National Assembly members to deliver the good, to do the needful, to do good governance for us. So I think that is very important. And I think the Senate president was on point. And the president felt at home because, he was also a former senator. He knows how the system works. The National Assembly members must cooperate with the president and the executive arm must collaborate with them. That does not mean if the executive is going overboard, they must agree. They mustn't agree. They must not agree. There must be separation, very clear separation of powers. But with a view to serving Nigerians, they must ensure that they cooperate. That is one. Then secondly, what happened yesterday, if it were an ordinary or a general bill, you still need to do first reading. And when you do first reading for just any bill, creation of establishing any parastatal and so on and so forth, you will need 3 readings, fine. But the first reading has been done for appropriation bill by the president yesterday by laying the bill. That is the provision of the rules. So what the National Assembly will do going forward, most likely today or latest by Tuesday, is to do the second reading, which will entail looking at the financial situation in Nigeria, the economic reality, and what is going on with respect to revenue and expenditure and so on and so forth. We are not going there. That's the difference between an ordinary bill and an appropriation bill is that at the stage of second reading, you can kill any bill. If you don't have enough people supporting you, if you have not galvanized enough support by lobbying your colleagues, your bill can be killed. An appropriation bill can never be killed. The appropriation bill must go on. And you are not just talking about the pros and cons of the bill, the advantages, disadvantages of the bill, the merits and demerits of the bill, talking about the general principles of the bill. No. Now you are talking about what is the economic reality with a view to assisting the appropriation committee that the budget will be sent to. You have to assist them.
Let me bring in our first caller. Sorry, Senator. I beg your pardon. Let me bring in our first caller. Wale has called in from Houston, Texas. Good morning, Wale, in the U.S.
Good morning, sir. Uncle Yori.
Good morning, sir. Thank you for calling in.
Yes, sir. Good morning, Senator. Uncle Yori, I just
Good
have
morning.
a question for the Senator this morning.
Okay.
Is that because when the president walking in to the section and they were singing, on your mandate we shall stand, is there any big deal or anything wrong the president or the House has done for them singing, on your mandate we shall stand? Well, the reason why I'm asking this question, I watched a program this morning and they have already been making it a big deal.
Okay.
That's why I'm asking Senator this question. As if something that is not supposed to be a big deal in Nigeria, they always try to make it a big deal because they're trying to say the president are turning the both House and the Senate to turning it to something else. That's why my question goes to the senators this morning.
All right, then.
If there's a song for them singing that song.
Oh, all right. Thank you very much, Wale, for calling in with that question. Senator, I believe you know what he's talking about. It was when the president was introduced,
Yes, I do.
and it was the sort of, what is it called? Was that a sort of a serenade? I think he's asking, was it appropriate or not? Because people have been talking about
My
it.
response is that it's no big deal. Ordinarily, in a proceeding, the proceeding is meant to be a very sober proceedings, very somber proceedings. You don't clap in the Senate, for instance, even at the committee level. You don't clap for people. It's supposed to be well-guided proceedings. But whenever the president comes to deliver the budget, it's always a different matter entirely. It's a joint sitting first and foremost. Don't forget that even in the rules, what the Constitution even says under Section 80 or 81 is that the president will come and lay the budget before the respective houses. But out of convention, we do it jointly. So you have a joint session.
Senator, I think
it's like the state of the nation address.
I beg your pardon. The song that Wale, sang there, and that it was in nature of a fanfare that followed the presentation of the president to the House. So that fanfare.
I just said so that.
Okay.
I just said so that when it comes to presentation of the budget and the president is there, don't forget that when President Buhari was there, must have been 4 or 5 years ago. 4 or 5 years ago, yes. That must have been the eighth Senate.
Okay.
And that was just before his re-election.
All right.
The chamber was tumultuous, was almost riotous, was extremely tumultuous. And people were shouting him down from the opposition. And those of us that were in the majority party were encouraging him. When it comes to the proceedings are always very liberal when the president comes. I was there when Zuma, the former president of South Africa, came with the president to deliver a special address to the joint session of the National Assembly. Proceedings are not always as regulated as when so people sing. I can throw support for you. State of the Nation address, when the president of America goes to the Congress to do State of the Nation address, people
you don't
clap.
see much wrong with it.
People stand up.
You don't see much wrong with it, Senator.
Nothing was wrong with it.
Ada in Jos has also called in. Thank you for holding on, Ada. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Yori, and good morning to your guest, the Senator. Well,
good morning.
That's my opinion this morning. Nobody should crucify me. Looking at the budget holistically, there's nothing new about it. It's more like a hallucinatory budget because we don't have much control over our oil production, due to our inability to check the growing level of oil sales. We can't control the price of crude at the international market, and by implication, the exchange rate. Servicing the huge debt is another issue. Some aspect of the budget that really got me, gave me good feeling for was the education, which is my area. Education is still hovering around 7% instead of UNESCO's recommendation of 26% or at least 20%. I thought Mr. President would have done something differently. Health also suffered the same problem, So that is it. So then the military, that's the military. Yes, they had a high.
The highest.
They have a high percentage. But then the problem is that no matter how much you will vote for the military, until they re-strategize and carry out a coordinated operation for a week, and it should be done simultaneously. Once it is done, you will see for 1 week we're going to get improve. It will improve than what we have now. They will operate in Kaduna. Some of the bandits will escape to Zamfara and so on. So that's an issue. So let them revisit it. Then again, another thing is that no matter the GDP or the double digit or whatever economic terms, it's not what is our problem. Our problem is go to the market and be able to buy food. Food insecurity is a big issue now. So they should do all they can to make sure they address such issues. As for the National Assembly, I'm not excited. You people cannot even, hold on that your research and face the issue of scrutinizing this budget thoroughly, because there's no separation of power. You people can even decide to just pass it tomorrow morning. Or it's a lesson for Nigeria.
Thank you very much for calling in, Ada. Okay, okay, Senator, please go ahead. How would you react? She wasn't happy that
she said for
education and health, for example, are way below, other parameters, security and the military, for instance.
Yes, what she said is true, but the budget has nothing to do with administration of the government. It is the budget implementation after the budget has been passed, budget performance. You do what is called policy incubation, performance, monitoring and evaluation, and compliance. That is administration. So it is left to the president, and I know he has the capacity, he has the experience to so do, to ensure that everything that has been written in the budget is implemented. Otherwise, it will just be in the budget. And next year, it will also come to reach the budget. The budget will be passed and nothing will happen. So that is implementation. So oil theft, exchange rates, all those things must be addressed. They must be addressed by way of administering, governing, and ensuring that the needful is done. She mentioned education should be still 7%, should be 26%, this and that, and so on and so forth, health. We've entered into so many agreements, so many treaties in Nigeria. And Treaty A, we say that you do education 20%, you do health 20%, you do this 20%. The budget is finished. That's the truth of the matter. So, whilst education and health
Senator, can we come back?